For the next video, what I'm going to go ahead and do now is we're going to go ahead and start adding the final touches. And so basically we need to add three elements. We need to add some foreground trees just to provide some focal points for the image. We also need to go ahead and include kind of a scaling object. And the easiest scaling object is a person. And so we'll talk about this a little bit in class, but I've certainly provided some options here. And so what I want to go ahead and do is just get started. If you go online to Google, you can, it's really easy to search trees with white background. And the reason for doing that is then you get trees that have a white background. And a lot of these are kind of available for purchase, but certainly as an academic exercise, these are images that you can go ahead and use for this purpose here. I have a library. I've had access to libraries in the past of these images that, when this first came out, this was thousands of dollars in imagery to get these kind of images. It's really pretty readily accessible at this point. But again, do the same thing. We make an active layer out of this tree image. I'm going to go ahead and I want to go ahead and cut off the bases here because those are an urban planter that those trees are contained in. I'm more interested in the grouping of the trees here, and so I inverted my selection. Now I'm going to use the magic wand to get rid of the white background, and away we go. Right, so now I've got an image. You can see I've got a little bit of somebody's name tagged in there. I'm not going to worry too much about it. We're actually going to hide some of that anyway. But I'm going to copy this, Control A, Control C, and I'm going to bring it into my drawing. And so once I've brought it in, I want this to kind of position somewhere towards the back. Now, where it fits in the image, right now I'm actually pretty comfortable with that. This one I want to be a bit bigger. So I want it to kind of take up more of the screen that way and a little bit more that way maybe. Yeah, that might be too much. I can always just make them a little bit wider too, right? And go ahead and drop my image in. But I want this one to be, again, in the background, and so I'm going to change this up and I'm going to drop that to the background. I'm going to change the opacity. I think I'm going to do a little bit heavier. But the reason for that is I'm going to drag another grouping of trees and I'm going to make these, in this case, I'm going to make them a little bit smaller because I'm trying to bring elements forward. And there, I'm going to go ahead and make these 80%. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, that looks about right. I could probably do 75. Just don't want them to look, like they're fixed objects right here available to us. But again, just provide some setting in there. I'm going to look down here at the bottom and make sure that I haven't done anything, other than having a little bit of an image tag issue kind of sitting in there, which for this assignment I'm just not worried about. To be honest, it looks fine by me. You can see that I've kind of finished that image off in the same way. So layered in a couple of trees. I'm going to go for the other side of the path. I'm going to grab this tree that's got a little fall color to it. Although most of this drawing, certainly has had different. I'm going to bring it over here. Now, this is where that layering comes in, is that I want it to sit behind layer 5. So, like that, it disappears into the background. Again, I think I'm going to make this, just lighten it up a little bit. 80%, drop it in, and away we go. Now you can see, really quickly, I've created a forest path. I've created a forest floor. I've texturized that forest floor. I've brought in some interesting features. I've brought trees and other images in the foreground, but now I need an element of scale. And the last thing I'm going to do there is I'm going to go ahead and just open up. I'm going to bring my hiker in. You can see, here's my hiker. So again, activate that layer. I'm going to cut out my hiker real quick by selecting them, inverting the selection, getting rid of what I don't need. Then I'm going to use the magic wand tool to get rid of some extras there. Get rid of the white space around the hiker. Looks like I lost part of her head in the process though, so I'm actually going to back up real quick before I lose all of her head. And it's at this point here. So I'm going to go ahead and using the Alt key, see I get a minus. And I'm going to go ahead and remove all of that. There we go. Same thing when I do the white, is it looks like I'm losing part of the head. So if I go back to my marquee, hold the Alt key, kind of remove that from consideration. And then all I'm going to do to fix this up here is I'm going to use an eraser, much smaller than that. I'm going to come in and trace that hat out, get rid of all the other white. Looks like we're pretty good. I'm going to use the eraser, trim off all of the excess, the around the boots. You can also use the marquee tool for larger areas to get rid of excess on the drawing. That's all I'm going to do. Control A, Control C. I'm going to finish out my drawing by bringing my hiker in and dropping her, hopefully the top of the pile on top of the trail. Now, probably the right size if I want her to be hiking back here. Scale-wise, if I bring her forward, I just need to increase the height. I mean, you got to look at it this way. If I turn her this way, the trail's about 6 feet wide, or if it's between 4 and 6 feet wide. So at that point in the trail, something like that, I'm gonna move her back up to where I sized her for, and ta-da! That's it. That's the entire skill development activity. You can go ahead and drop a label on it like I did in the other drawing. I certainly grabbed this, and the reason that I did that is that you can drop it in on top of your frame, and I like breaking the frame with my titles whenever possible. It just adds a touch to it. Anyway, that's the entire working drawing. Don't forget to save. Remember, save this first as a PSD file. Call this Skill Development 03. I'm going to label mine working. And once you've got that done, you can go ahead and flatten the image. Do a image size it down, so 7 inches. If you want to just drop it into a Word document, to a save as, a JPEG, and that's it. You're all wrapped up. Hope you enjoyed this exercise.